Welcome to Unit Standard 24484 Training Information 2. We are going to start discussing some of the child development theories. I just first want to explain that we are going to look at different domains of development, and we are going to look at the different theories in these domains. There are different theorists that we will discuss, and some theorists have theories about more than one domain, and some of them have theories about just one domain. So needless to say, we need to, at the end of looking at all these theorists and all these theories, we need to put them all together in order to understand child development as a whole. So we are going to look at them separately, but it's something that we need to take into consideration when we look at the child as a whole. We always need to remember that we need to develop the child in all the domains. So the first domain that we will be looking at is physical development. There is an overview of all the theorists and short descriptions of what domain they cover and the main point of their theory in this form, as well as in your module. So it's a great place to refer back to when you are busy doing your activities, or when you just want to see with which theorists work with which domain. So we're going to start with physical development, and the first theorist that we are going to look at is Whitebread. So Whitebread is a theorist that only worked with physical development. So his theory is purely about a child's physical development. So it has different milestones: when the child is able to sit, when the child is able to walk, and so it's straightforward, just physical development and different milestones that a child reaches at a different ages. As always, this is just guidelines. As I said in the previous video, we are not saying that this is a rule, but these theorists have all studied children and for many years have done research about children, and this is their conclusion about the development of children. So for Whitebread, you can go into your module and just straightforward go and read on what age group is supposed to be able to do what with regards to physical development. The next theorist we are going to be looking at is Gazelle. So Gazelle is also still with physical development, but he also acknowledged the connection between physical development and cognitive development. So Gazelle not only focused on physical development, but he said that physical and cognitive development works together. So he said that a child cannot physically do something if he is not cognitively ready to do that. So, for example, it doesn't matter how much you stimulate a baby of 6 months, doesn't matter how much you practice or how much you stimulate the child, they will never be able to run at the age of 6 months because they are cognitively not ready to do so. And that's why he said that there's a strong connection between physical and cognitive development. And you can read more about his different milestones and what he said about the different age groups. Those are the only two theorists we are going to be working with regards to physical development. And just to recap, Whitebread only focuses on physical development, where Gazelle focuses on the link between physical and cognitive development. Our next theorist is a really important theorist, and he is Piaget. So Piaget worked with cognitive development as well as moral development. So he has two different theories, one theory for cognitive development, and he also has a theory for moral development. So those are two separate theories, and we are going to be looking at the cognitive development theory first. So Piaget's cognitive development theory, he says that children also develops in stages, and he identified 4 different stages for cognitive development. So the first stage is the sensorimotor stage, then it's the pre-operational stage, concrete operational stage, and formal operational stage. So there's those 4 stages. If we look at those stages a little bit closer, we start with the sensorimotor stage. Everything is actually in the name of the stage. So sensory, that is to do with the senses, so your 5 senses, seeing, tasting, smelling, hearing. It means that a child builds its cognitive abilities through his senses. So a child between 0 and 2 years, they use their senses, they taste and touch and feel everything, and use their muscles. So it's sensory and motor, which means the senses and the muscles work together, and that is the most important part of a child of 0 to 2 years. They are using their senses and their muscles in order to get to know the world and to develop cognitively. Whatever they learn, they do through their senses and through touching and feeling everything that they come into contact with. Another really important thing to note in the sensorimotor stage is object permanence. So in the sensorimotor stage is where children learn the concept of object permanence. So what this means is a child doesn't, from the beginning, so when a child is born or when the child is still very young, they don't understand that something is still there even though you can't see it. So if I take their doll and I put it behind my back, they think that the doll doesn't exist anymore or that it's gone. But as soon as I bring it back, then they see that it's there again. But they don't understand that the doll is just behind my back and that it's actually still there, I'm just in front of it. They don't understand that yet. So that is what we call object permanence. Once they understand that an object is permanent, even though I can't see it, then they understand object permanence. And that is something that they learn in this sensorimotor stage. And that is also the reason why peekaboo is such a nice game for them. Because you hide your face and they think that your face is gone and it doesn't exist anymore. And once you open your face, then it's like you appear out of nowhere. And that is why children really enjoy that. And the more you do that with them, and maybe you put something under a blanket and you make a noise with it, then they understand that the thing is still under the blanket even though I can't see it. So that is a really important thing that children learn during the sensorimotor stage of 0 to 2 years is object permanence. The next stage of Piaget's cognitive development theory is the pre-operational stage. So this is for children aged 2 to 7 years, and it's a really important stage because this is the age group that most of ECD center practitioners work with. So children of this stage, they begin to think symbolically, which means they link pictures and symbols to a meaning. For example, they know that a heart stands for love, or that a certain picture means something. So they are able to begin thinking symbolically. And then children of the pre-operational stage is very egocentric. So egocentric means that they can't put themselves in someone else's shoes. They can only think of themselves. For example, if they hide away from you, they think because they can't see you, that you can't see them. They can't think that as another person that's standing there, they are still able to see me. But because I can't see you, it means that you can't see me. So they can only think of in terms of themselves. Another example is if you ask a child in the pre-operational stage if they have a brother or a sister, they would say, yes, my sister's name is Michelle. And if you ask them, does Michelle have a brother or a sister, they would say no, or I don't know, because they can't think as Michelle. So children of this age is really egocentric, and they struggle to put themselves in someone else's shoes. Another important thing about the pre-operational stage is the fact that children of this stage cannot understand the concept of conservation. So conservation is a good way to explain this, and you will see this in the link of the video that I add on this form. So conservation is when, for example, you give the child 2 glasses with exactly the same amount of water, and then you ask them, is it the same amount of water in both the glasses? And then they will say yes. Then you have another smaller or longer glass, but thinner glass, and you pour the water of the one glass into the longer, thinner glass. So that water will obviously look higher, even though it's still the same amount, it just looks higher. If you ask them again which one of the glasses have more water, or if it's the same amount of water, the child will then say that the one that is higher has more water, because they only think because it looks higher or taller, it must be more, even though they just saw that you put it from the same glass into the other glass. So they don't understand that even though something can look different, it's still the same amount. So that is an example of the concept of conservation, and there's more examples in the video that you can go and watch. So to recap the pre-operational stage, children begins to think symbolically. They are still very egocentric in this stage. They can't think of in terms of someone else. They can only think of themselves, and then they don't understand the concept of conservation yet. The third stage of Piaget's cognitive development theory is the concrete operational stage, and this stage is from age 7 to 11. So in this stage, children begins to understand the concept of conservation. So in the previous stage, they couldn't understand that this water is still the same amount, even though it looks higher. Now, in the concrete operational stage, they begin to understand that it's still the same amount, even though it looks higher or more. Children of this stage, the concrete operational stage, they are beginning to think more logical and more organized. So their thoughts are starting to be more logical, and they can follow sequences, but it's still not abstract thoughts. Abstract is something that you cannot touch or see per se, but it's like a thought or feeling, like, for example, something like love. You can't touch love, but it's something that you need to understand. It's an abstract thought. So children of this age can still not really grasp abstract thoughts, but their thoughts are more logical and more organized. They also, in the concrete operational stage, start to be less egocentric. So they are beginning to be able to put themselves in someone else's shoes. And they don't only focus on their experience and what they experience. They are able to think, but how does someone else see this? Or how does someone else feel about this? So children of 7 to 11 age are beginning to be less egocentric. The formal operational stage is the final stage of Piaget's cognitive development theory. And this stage is 12 years and up. So this is when the child really are able to begin to think abstractly, and they can reason about things. They can find different solutions to a problem. Their thoughts are more abstract, and they can think of different solutions to a problem. Another very important thing about Piaget's cognitive development theory is that he said that when you develop cognitively, it's not just about knowing more than you used to. So it's not just about building knowledge as you grow older, but the way that you think about things changes. So the way you think about situations and problems and things that you feel changes as you grow older. So as we move on with Piaget's theories, we are moving to the moral theory of Piaget. So we just discussed the cognitive theory, but Piaget also had a moral theory. So if we talk about morals or morality, we are talking about knowing the difference between what is wrong and what is right. And as Piaget has developed his theory about this, he said that there is mainly two stages in his moral theory. So the first stage is objective morality, and the second stage is subjective morality. So in the first stage of objective morality, Piaget basically said that children up to the age of 10 years, they still see things as really black and white. So something is either right or it's wrong. So they don't look at why it happened or what is the circumstances around why it happened. For example, if you break a glass, you were wrong. Okay, so let's say in scenario A, Mandy went to the kitchen and she was angry at her mom, so she took the glass and threw it on the ground because she wanted to make her mom mad and she was angry at her. If you ask a child if Mandy was wrong in breaking the glass, they would say yes, because breaking a glass is wrong. Then, if we say scenario B, Lucy also broke a glass, but Lucy was coming around the corner and someone walked into her by accident and she let the glass fall because someone walked into her. So with Lucy, it was an accident, but with Mandy, she did it on purpose. If you ask the children or a child in the objective morality stage, who was more wrong, Lucy or Mandy, or were they both wrong, then they would simply say that they both were wrong because they both broke the glass. So they don't look at if it was an accident or if it was on purpose or why it happened. It's just because they broke a glass, they are wrong. So children of this stage don't have that abstract thought or reasoning yet to think about why something happened or why it may be that someone is less wrong than someone else. Where in the subjective morality stage, that is the stage where from 10 years on, where children start to have the ability to think about why something happened and maybe that Lucy was less wrong because it was an accident. Just to recap, Piaget's moral theory has two stages, objective morality and subjective morality. In the objective morality stage, children is very black and white, yes or no. They don't consider any other circumstances, where in the subjective morality stage, children are able to consider different situations and make more complex decisions about morality.